Has he ever trapped you in a room and not let you out? Has he ever raised a fist as if he were going to hit you? Has he ever thrown an object that hit you or nearly did? Has he ever held you down or grabbed you to restrain you? Has he ever shoved, poked, or grabbed you? Has he ever threatened to hurt you? If the answer to any of these questions is yes, then we can stop wondering whether he'll ever be violent. He already has been. This is Lundy Bancroft Quotes Part 3. The myths about abusers. 1. He was abused as a child. 2. His previous partner hurt him. 3. He abuses those he loves the most. 4. He holds in his feelings too much. 5. He has an aggressive personality. 6. He loses control. 7. He is too angry. 8. He is mentally ill. 9. He hates women. 10. He is afraid of intimacy and abandonment. 11. He has low self-esteem. 12. His boss mistreats him. 13. He has poor skills in communication and conflict resolution. 14. There are as many abusive women as abusive men. 15. His abusiveness is as bad for him as it is for his partner. 16. He is a victim of racism. And 17. He abuses drugs. When a man starts my abusive men's counseling program, he often says, I am here because I lose control of myself sometimes. I need to get a better grip. I always correct him. Your problem is not that you lose control of yourself. It's that you take control of your partner. In order to change, you don't need to gain control of yourself. You need to let go of control of her. When we hear excuses from a drunk, we assume they are exactly that, excuses. We don't consider an active alcoholic a reliable source of insight, so why should we let an angry and controlling man be the authority on partner abuse? There certainly are some women who treat their male partners badly, berating them, calling them names, attempting to control them. The negative impact on these men's lives can be considerable. But do we see men whose self-esteem is gradually destroyed through this process? Do we see men whose progress in school or in their careers grinds to a halt because of these constant criticisms and underminings? Where are the men whose partners are forcing them to have unwanted sex? Where are the men who are fleeing into shelters in fear of their lives? How about the ones who try to get to a phone call for help, but the women block their way or cut the line? The reason we don't generally see these men is simple. They're rare. I don't question how embarrassing it would be for a man to come forward and admit that a woman is abusing him, but don't underestimate how humiliated a woman feels when she reveals abuse. Women crave dignity just as much as men do. If shame stopped people from coming forward, no one would tell. The scars from mental cruelty can be as deep and long-lasting as wounds from punches or slaps, but are often not as obvious. In fact, even among women who have experienced violence from a partner, half or more report that the man's emotional abuse is what is causing them the greatest harm. Your abusive partner doesn't have a problem with his anger, he has a problem with your anger. One of the basic human rights he takes away from you is your right to be angry with him. No matter how badly he treats you, he believes that your voice shouldn't rise and your blood shouldn't boil. The privilege of rage is reserved for him alone. When your anger does jump out of you, as will happen to any abused woman from time to time, he's likely to try to jam it back down your throat as quickly as he can. Then he uses your anger against you to prove what an irrational person you are. Abusers can make you feel straitjacketed. You may develop physical or emotional reactions to swallowing your anger, such as depression, nightmares, emotional numbing, or eating or sleeping problems, which your partner may use as an excuse to belittle you further or make you feel like you're crazy. Let me find some more Lundy Bancroft articles for you. I don't want to make you watch like a 30-second video. Start with Dr. Irene. What is this from? Long-term verbal abuse symptoms, and I forget where this came from. What verbal abuse symptoms are you most likely to experience over time? Living in an abusive relationship can cause you to suffer physical, mental, or emotional problems. How does verbal abuse mess with you in the long haul? What will you give up to stay in a relationship filled with verbal, emotional, and mental battery? An abuser's crazy making and brainwashing can change you from a vibrant, independent person into a hopeless pawn. Your life disappears and you disappear. Verbal abuse symptoms like depression and anxiety make you think less of yourself. Not only does the abuser treat you horribly, but you begin to treat yourself horribly too. As you read this list of verbal abuse symptoms, ask yourself, what will I sacrifice to tolerate abuse? Verbal abuse symptoms list. Your doctor may diagnose you with depression, anxiety, post-traumatic stress disorder, or some other mental issue. You feel trapped and on guard. You lose your spontaneity and excitement for life. You think you cannot communicate well. You suffer postponement, loss or shattering of dreams. You wish for death, yours or your partner's. You become preoccupied with fears or what if scenarios. You think you lost your ability to understand what others say or mean. You feel crazy or out of control. Others say you have low self-esteem, or if you realize you're losing self-esteem, you don't know why. You turn to drugs, alcohol, sex, or any other addicting behavior. You feel lost or experience circular thoughts and confusion. You find that you rely on another person to tell you what you should feel or do. You feel uneasy or even paranoid with no defined cause. You overanalyze yourself, wonder what you should have done, or replay your conversations in your mind. You find that your internalized critical voice agrees with your abuser's accusations. You feel that you are missing something or that time is passing too swiftly to carry out your dreams. You wait for some point in the future when everything will be better. You want to escape or run away but may not know what you want to escape from and feel you don't have anywhere to go if you left. You may experience insomnia or other sleep disturbances. You might put yourself down in conversations without noticing. You may experience unexplained physical problems or fear that you're a hypochondriac. So, what are you willing to sacrifice to tolerate abuse in your relationship? Verbal abuse symptoms may cause you to stay with your abuser. If you're lucky, at this point there's nothing wrong with you except in the eyes of your abuser. But the long-term verbal abuse symptoms include mental and emotional issues that increase your confusion and lessen your resolve to free yourself from the abuse. Abuse seeks to imprison you. Abusers who have not yet turned to physical violence can be time bombs with fuses of unknown length. If your abuser feels that his or her verbally abusive techniques are not working, he or she will most likely turn to physical abuse to keep their control over you. Abuse escalates over time. If you are verbally abused today, you may be physically assaulted in the future. Abusive relationships make you feel beaten down and devastated, but it is never too late to get help. www.drirene.com. Language analysis. Analysis of the abuser's language. In corresponding with other persons who have experienced abusive relationships, I found that the abuse is generally first identified by abused partners only as temper tantrums or fits of rage. For the fortunate ones who discover their problem, that is usually the initial indicator that there is something wrong with their relationship. Sometimes there are no fits. Sometimes it is just criticism or withholding or control. I've looked over my years in an abusive relationship. No knowledge of the abusive phenomenon and its roots or indicators, and compared it to last year. Full knowledge of the issues. I have discovered that my inability to effectively communicate with an abusive partner is a bigger problem than the anger and rage. Of course, I recognize that being a male, the physical danger of her rage is less of a threat. Taking that into account, I still recognize the total lack of communication experienced in abusive relationships as the larger issue. I find that to be the case even after reading the Patricia Evans book, Viewing Your Sight, and several other sources of information on the subject. Many persons have trouble recognizing the depth of the communication problems in these relationships. I correspond regularly with several persons in this predicament and still find them asking questions such as, why would he say that? And what do you think he meant by that? My personal experience with attempting to communicate with an abuser is simply, they speak a different language than their partner. Let's call it me. That is an easy way to sum up the many different statements they use to control, frighten, confuse, or intimidate their partners. Normally mentally healthy persons in a relationship use language to consciously convey their thoughts to their partner. Abusers, however, use language to manipulate their partners into giving them what they want. Sometimes consciously, sometimes not. In fact, I believe abusers learn to use manipulation so well that it actually becomes a language to them, and they eventually lose conscious control of their responses. Their language is actually a tool to protect themselves from emotional exposure. Even when their relationships appear to be even-keeled, they are often setting themselves up for future verbal victories. I say that since having studied this matter intricately, I can accurately predict my partner's response to given circumstances, which would have resulted in emotional exposure nearly every time. This makes it very clear to me that there has never been any communication, nor can there ever be without intense professional therapy. Yes, and even then, that's an if. Abusers are so afraid to expose themselves and are so bent on control that they know no other way. They can't speak our language. They have no idea how to speak a language that would require considering the needs and wants of others. I believe that after food and shelter, the most basic human need is to be understood and accepted. That's why I also believe the lack of communication is by far the most frustrating and destructive part of the abusive relationship. You can't even solve minor issues involving children or finance without being attacked or accused of attacking. That is what really wears the partner down. Not their rage and anger, but your daily frustrations and loneliness. Yes. One of the most frustrating and common habits of abusers is to constantly butt in and cut off their partner while talking. This is frequently the most aggravating habit many abusers have. They can't give it up because it serves some very important purposes. It blocks any possibility of communication. It allows them to say whatever they want. And most importantly, it gives them total control of the conversation. Usually, partners try reasoning with them about all sides, being given a fair chance to talk. What they don't realize is that abusers don't really care about what their partners are saying, so it serves them no purpose to listen. In fact, the abuser would prefer that the partner not talk and simply accept their assertions as gospel. When the partner learns this, they can truly have an understanding of the hopelessness of fixing an abusive relationship without professional counseling. There is no possibility of communication if one of the parties is determined not to communicate. Another very destructive habit which I have identified in my relationship I refer to as echoing. This abusive habit is extremely destructive to a relationship, yet it is a very effective tool which the abuser uses to win conversations. Uses in conversations, This habit takes two distinct forms. The object is to feel whatever the partner feels whenever an attack is detected by the abuser. The scenario goes something like this. Partner: I don't like what you said to me this morning. Abuser: Well, I don't like what you said to me either. This is an easy way for the abuser to avoid addressing your concerns, remain in control, change the subject, and launch a counterattack. You may also notice that this avoids answering the question. Abusers do not answer questions. That is perceived by them as giving up control. They generally answer a question with a question in attempts to throw the partner off balance and regain control. They will do this repeatedly until you capitulate or until they provoke an argument. This also has the added benefit of teaching the partner not to bring any complaints to the attention of the abuser. The second form is to accuse the partner of whatever the partner accuses them of. Scenario 2. Partner: Please don't raise your voice at me. Abuser: You're the one that's yelling. Or partner: Please stop cutting me off and let me finish my sentence. Abuser: You're the one who cuts me off all the time. When the conversation is discussed later, the abuser quickly takes the opportunity to first accuse the partner of the infraction and then seize the high ground. The abuser will then take every opportunity in the future to accuse the partner of doing what they do, saying, "See, you do it too." This is generally viewed by the abuser as a way out. Anytime they accuse you of an action similar to one of their destructive actions, that is viewed by them as a license to do it at will and a win. There are many other tricks used by abusers to avoid communication, but these are two of the most common which I've encountered. I think the key is to understand that the abuser's language is not the same as a normal person, that their language does not convey their thoughts and is in fact designed to do just the opposite. Once we understand this, we also learn that we can't and shouldn't want to speak their language. However, if we have to deal with them, for whatever reason, we can learn to interpret their words and phrases enough to decipher their true meanings. Unfortunately, learning this language also seems to more clearly show the hopelessness of reestablishing a normal relationship with a person of this mentality. That's all I'm going to read for today.